Welcome to RNG episode 3. You got your boy Grizz. Got your boy Raj. What's up, dude?
Hey, how's it going, man?
It's going great.
How's it going, viewers?
Viewers,
out there
what's up?
listening?
What's happening? So we've got a new premise today, a new idea brought to you from the minds of RNG. We're going to start a little, every now and then we're going to discuss a book that we've read.
Wait, this is coming straight from the mind of G, not RNG. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm excited though. I think the book idea is good because in a way we kind of have like a younger audience. I think we're responsible for educating them a little bit. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
bring in a book once a month.
Not only educating them, but educating ourselves.
That's right. Exactly.
It's a win-win. Everybody gets a little bit of education in this situation.
When you educate yourself, you educate the world. Those are
That's
wise
a
words.
quote right now.
I just made that up, by the way, but that's a fantastic quote.
Genius.
Someone's gotta use
When
it.
you educate yourself, you educate the world.
Quote me on that, kids.
Put it in the description.
Tell your parents about that one. All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so the book, I got this book for Christmas. I put it on my Christmas list. It's called Let My People Go Surfing, and it's by Yvon Chouinard. I think I pronounced his name correctly. It's a French name. I don't know. But anyway, let me give you a bit of background on the guy, okay? So he's a rock climber. He was like one of the guys leading the frontier in Yosemite back in like the late 50s. And he's probably more well known for being the founder of Patagonia, the clothing company.
See, that's what you got to start with, because people are gonna be like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" But the Patagonia CEO part, that's the one, boys. That's how you know who this guy is.
I'll give you guys a little brief, a nugget of history from the book. So this guy started off, Yvon Chouinard, started off as a rock climber. He had no interest in running a business. He was kind of like anti-business, you know? You know what I'm saying, Raj? Kind of like you.
Yeah, there you go. Anti-capitalism.
Anti-capitalism. So like he would make just enough money to go out into national parks and other areas where rock climbing is legit. And he would spend all of his time out there climbing. He'd like overstay the 2-week limit in the park just so he could climb more. And eventually he got to a point where he wasn't satisfied with the equipment that other people were making. So he started making his own pitons, which are like these spikes that you bang into the rock or like wedges in the rock so you can secure yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where he got his start. Like his business started up and he was primarily making rock climbing equipment.
Oh, that's how Patagonia started?
Yeah.
That's like their... Okay. That's cool. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, so he started making his own equipment and he was pretty successful at that. And he had to hire some more people, like basically his friends, to help him out. And then eventually one day he went back to Yosemite to rock climb and he noticed like all of the marks left behind on the wall from all the pitons.
Yeah.
And he felt kind of bad about it because he was also contributing to this, you know, with his equipment.
Were they using his product to deface the rock?
I mean, some of them were, but like they would bang it in and then they just leave it there, or they'd pull it out and it'd like
bastards.
it'd like mess up the rock.
Kill them all. Kill them. Whoever did that
And
to the rock, dude. Fuck those guys.
And he said this came from like an American mindset of when you're rock climbing, you're like conquering the rock. You know, it's all about like conquest. You don't really care about what it takes to get there. It's about like defeating this obstacle, right?
Yeah. I guess. I see that.
Yeah, so I mean, like, he said he didn't like that what they were doing was just like destroying the environment that they loved the most. So he got some European techniques and he kind of brought those over to America and made them more popular here. And they were like the first company in America to really push these other techniques that would leave the rock face as you found it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's kind of how it started off. And you can see like right from the get-go his concern for the environment and like the things that he loved, which is like the natural world, I guess.
All right, wait. So just quick question. All right, so this all sounds great and all, you know, coming from the fucking CEO of Patagonia, or however you say that. But I personally feel like the dude's a CEO of like a huge international clothing company, and from what I've researched about these companies, they use, you know, child laborers, all kinds of shit to, you know, make the cheapest amount, which makes sense, you know, because of the consumers wanting everything like next day and they want like, you know, quality for the cheapest. you got to get it from somewhere, right? So
Mhm.
it makes sense. I understand that. But does this guy participate in any of that shit with his company?
We're gonna get there.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I don't know if you
We're
have more
gonna
to say
get there.
about that,
Yeah,
but
that's
okay,
it's kind of
okay.
like the whole idea behind the book. Is it started off as
Uh-huh.
this philosophy of, or this book about Patagonia's philosophies, basically, and how they
Hmm.
feel about the business world and what they're trying to do and like what their goal is, basically.
Yeah.
And the goal of the company basically is to make the best product that they possibly can that hurts the environment in the least way possible, if that makes sense.
Wait, just real quick, listeners, we are not sponsored by fucking Patagonia, all right, to make this video.
But
This
if
is
they
just
want to sponsor us,
there you
our
go. That
DMs
could
are
be an
open.
out,
Hit us, hit us
there you
up.
go. They've been open since we started, but hey, hit us up.
Basically, by creating the best clothing possible and the best equipment possible, that means that you don't have to buy it as often, right? Like if you go to Walmart and you buy, say, you buy a rain jacket, it's gonna last you like 2 years, maybe, right? And
Yep.
then as soon as it gets a hole in it or something, because it's made so cheaply, like it's basically
Mm-hmm.
worthless. There's no point in repairing it because it's garbage.
Mm-hmm.
So they strive to make like good equipment and good clothing, and when it does get damaged, they encourage you to repair it. And
Mm-hmm.
if you don't want to repair it yourself, you can send it back into them, or you can go into one of their retail stores and they'll repair it for you for free, basically.
Whoa, I didn't know they did that.
Yeah. So as long as it's like something that's just from general wear and tear, like obviously, if you go and you just like cut your jacket in half, I doubt they'd repair that. But it's just like, reasonable wear and tear because they're trying
Yeah.
to not have to produce more clothing.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's kind of the whole premise behind the company. But the book was talking about kind of how they got there and their philosophies and what they do to make sure that they don't contribute as much to uh, hurting the environment as other companies.
Okay. That sounds like a good book. Did you end up reading the whole thing?
I read the whole thing and I started rereading it so that I could be on top of my game for this episode. But I didn't have time this week. I didn't finish the second read through. So
Damn.
sorry.
That's no, don't even apologize. I think the fact that you even read the first time through the whole way, that's an accomplishment, dude. Congratulations.
Thanks,
Thank
dude.
you for doing that for the community. Because I mean, let's face it, these kids aren't gonna pick up fucking. What's the dude's name again?
Yvon Chouinard.
They're not gonna go pick up Yvon Chouinard's book off the, off the shelf.
Hey, they
That's not
might.
happening. I mean, yeah, they might, they might. I feel like, this is interesting because you're bringing up a topic that rarely ever gets talked about, but it's kind of a big deal, which is the fucking
Mhm.
environment. People like we exist within this environment.
Right.
Like I think earlier on you were saying that the guy mentioned how the American philosophy when they're climbing the mountain is like, I want to conquer this
Mhm.
rock. Like I want to show this rock who the boss is. This is some weird like nationalistic pride
Right.
that comes with that.
And that's kind of like the American mindset for everything, right?
Yeah, yeah, true. Even with food, they deep fry butter. They deep fry butter. Like I'm just, dude, they go everywhere. Like anything in America is taken to the next level. It's just a weird nationalistic thing that we have here. But I will say that the environment thing is interesting because if you look at what's happening right now with the border wall that's going
Mhm.
up, like regardless of how you feel about Trump or the wall or whatever the fuck, the building of the wall is said to actually break the homes of a lot of endangered species,
Right.
if not cause some species to go into extinction. Like it's kind of a big deal. Like this is the world environment that they also live in. Like we're humans, we're at the top, but animals are also conscious creatures. They
Mhm.
they feel pain. They have homes way before we even got here. But it's kind of crazy how like the wall itself is destroying all these things, but that's not even the focal point. Like no one in media ever brings up the environment. So it's kind of cool that you went this route.
Right. And you think that like the one thing we should all be able to relate to and agree upon is protecting the environment because it's like our home. It's not like our home, it is
Hmm.
our home. And it's not just liberals that live here. It's conservatives too.
Hmm.
So it's like I don't understand why helping save the environment and climate change, I don't understand why these are partisan issues where one party is like, fuck the environment, who cares? We're here to make money, and who cares how we
Yeah.
make it? Who cares what we do in the process to get it? And it's just disheartening because it's something that we should all be striving to do.
Well, it's that American mindset we're talking about, right? Because I think a lot of people are in this idea that they're just like, fuck it, dude. Like once I die, who cares? You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Who cares about the rest of the world? But it's like that mindset doesn't lend empathy to the bigger picture, which is that even after you die, your kids, if not your kids, someone else's kids, and the next generation of humans, they also have to utilize the land that you're currently siphoning resources out of
Right.
constantly. So like it's like you need to be able to understand that there's a level of empathy that's needed there that I feel like maybe like the American philosophy, doesn't exactly work well with. What is this guy trying to do though? Like the CEO guy, aside from like trying to, make sure his company is not hiring, illegal kids and shit. But like
Right.
what like is he doing anything else for the environment or
Yeah. So like if you look at what they do is they make a ton of donations to like small environmental protection groups. Because he says, like those are the most passionate people. You can go to the government and you can try and donate to like government programs and stuff, but
yeah.
they're not as passionate. They don't care. It's the people that are like starting the grassroots campaigns that actually care more.
Mhm.
They basically just help the little guys like actually fight back against the big corporations. And what they do is they donate 1% of their sales. So like if you go
Mhm.
to the store and you buy like $100 jacket or whatever, right? They'll donate $1.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
at first you're like, yo, they're selling jackets for like 100, $200. That's only like $2. But you think about the number of people buying them,
Mhm.
and like they've raised millions and millions of dollars to help these environmental causes.
That's pretty dope.
So that's like one thing they do. That's like one of their main things
Yeah.
that like you can cite and say that. But like they do outsource some of their things to other companies or other countries. So it's not like all made in the United States,
Mhm.
but they'll go in and they'll like audit their factories. So like they make sure that the working conditions are ethical and that they're being paid a fair wage. And they'll like go in and check in on their factories like every 2 months to make sure that everything is like up to code.
Yeah, that's what they need, man. I think. Well, I mean, I'm sure every other factory does that, but they just kind of turn a blind eye to the shit that
Yeah.
makes them the money. So yeah, that's good that they at least fact check their facilities.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, like, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like Patagonia is the only company that cares, but like after reading this book,
Yeah.
you see what they go through, and you realize that other companies don't really do that.
Is this a book solely about Patagonia, the company, and Inception, or does it talk about the CEO and then that guy's life story?
It's kind of both. It talks about like where he began, kind of like where he grew up, his mindset, and how he
Hmm.
arrived, like with the mindset and opinions that he has. And then it
Yeah.
goes into starting up the company, and it talks about some of the problems they had starting up. And then it
Hmm.
talks about like their philosophies and what they believe in today and what they do for like their workers and the environment and basically how they operate now.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay, so it's like an encompassing book,
Yeah, it
with
kind of says like
with
it
everything.
tells a lot of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Dude, I think the number one way to fix all this shit, right? Okay, so look, environmental issues, global warming, all these issues, right? I think they can all be fixed. By the way, this includes uh, school reforms, gun reforms. This includes religious, like any issue that we have in this country. I think can be solved if we eliminate lobbying in the White House. I think lobbying is the number one cause of all these things.
Hmm.
Especially the environmental thing that we were talking about. A lot of these, like all these, like we always say, like, oh, the government doesn't care about the environment, this or that. I think that's not exactly an accurate statement either, because maybe there are people in the government who do give a fuck about the
Hmm.
environment, right? Like maybe there are people who do care, who do like even back in the day when Nazis were a thing in Germany, there were good Nazis who actually saved people. Like it's not just one group is all bad. There's
Right.
people in there who are conscious and can make their own choices. But I personally feel like even if you are conscious and can make your own choices, when you involve something like lobbying, in like a political environment, now you're just adding a bias onto that,
Yeah.
like, and you buy out all these guys, like all these companies that profit off of, the destruction of land and environments and shit, right? All these people who profit off of it, they are directly in the pockets and the ears of the people that controlled the choice, so it's
Hmm.
kind of like we have to start there. I think that's like a good starting point.
Yeah, basically, like the politicians that don't care because they're paid not to care, right?
Yeah, because you can justify turning a blind eye to some bullshit if you get paid for that,
Right.
and And there's a lot of people who think like that too. So it's like it's not just yeah. I think a lot of the environmental and all the other political issues in this country is just a bigger symptom of lobbying and what that whole system kind of brought us.
Yeah. I mean, because you look at it and it's like we were saying earlier, like, why is it something that only one half of the country should care about? Everybody should be caring about this. But it also comes back to like, I think it's like 40% of people don't believe in climate change. They think it's just a hoax. And it's just like, it goes back to like what we were saying with the last video. It's all about educating people.
Mm-hmm.
And when there are people that blatantly deny climate change, when there are so many facts that you can look up and just see that it's actually happening, it's just blows my mind that so many people are just so content to stay ignorant about the issue because it's more convenient for them.
Yeah, like another thing is like I don't want to make this podcast like a platform where we're just like, oh, Donald Trump is good or he's bad, right? I don't want to turn this into that. But I will say that if Trump actually publicly came out and he made a statement saying that global warming is a Chinese hoax and that none of this is an issue, like it's a real statement that he made. And like I said, I'm not going to say that Trump is bad or good. That's up to you to decide. I don't really care. But if we're going to look at specific words, language that's being used to talk about actual issues that are happening around the world, right? I think that's a good place to start looking at. It's like how, there are people that say that vaccines, for example, right, aren't gonna save their kids. It's gonna give them autism.
Mhm.
I think that's what isn't that where like the movement started back in the day?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So it's like there's people peddling all kinds of bullshit to the world, and people eat that
Right.
shit up because they want something to believe in. I think maybe we as a society need to start educating people to stop believing in dumbass shit, right? But even then, they'll find some way to justify it. I don't know. It's like it's we're at a really strange time in history where people are willing to give themselves diseases because they believe that you're
Right.
gonna get, and it's just like I don't know what to say to that. Like it's just
Yeah, I mean,
there,
like you look at the statistics, and people will be like, "Oh, well, if you get vaccinated, like a flu vaccination, there's a chance that you can die from it or whatever." But it's like if
Right.
you look at the statistics, the chances of dying from a flu vaccination are
Yeah.
way worse than the odds of just dying from the flu.
Right.
So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
like I don't know. People just don't think about it, I guess.
I mean, even look at global warming too, right? Because the temperatures have risen. Like
Right.
it's not even just some crazy
Right, like it's hard facts. You can look at it.
right. Yeah.
And it's only going to get worse. And like you look at like the wildfire situation going on in California and other parts of the country, and the more severe like natural disasters, like more hurricanes,
Mm-hmm.
all that's due to climate change. That I'm not going to say is 100% caused by humans, but I don't think you can look at climate change and say that it's 100% natural and we as humans are not contributing at all.
Or China as a whole government decided to create it. I mean, look,
Right, right.
like it's just you can't. Yeah, you gotta.
I've always never understood like why anybody would think that it's made up. Like who stands to benefit from climate change? Like who would make that up and say climate change is real? Who's benefiting from that? Like if everybody
Okay,
bought into that, who wins?
Okay, so this is kind of interesting because I might have the answer to this.
Okay.
Might or might not, depending on how you view this. But remember when we were talking about all the good things that the CEO of Patagonia did in the book? He was talking about like his environmental causes and stuff. There's people like him who are great at that. Like like he understands business. He understands that business is meant for the people. It's meant to be a service to the people, and not necessarily the people servicing him. Like he understands that he's in that industry. And I think a lot of people in the service industry forget that sometimes, right? They fail to realize that their product that they're making, the service that they're providing is for the benefit of everyone using it, not just for their pockets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the mindset that sort of gets lost in capitalism. But the thing is, people who benefit from people believing that climate change isn't real have a much bigger plan that has probably been laid out for the past decade that normal people probably will never know about, right? Until it actually happens.
Well, I mean, for me, I feel like the people who benefit from people denying climate change, it's obvious. It's like the oil companies, right? Like that's where the money's at. And they benefit because if people start believing in climate change, then people will spend less money on gas. People will start buying more fuel efficient cars. And as a result, they're not going to sell as much.
Economically, that makes sense. I guess what I was trying to, you're right too. I guess what I was trying to say was I think a deeper a deeper goal underneath all of that, I think, is control. Because if you can control the narrative of a real life situation, right, and you can control your base of population to believe your narrative, that's powerful as fuck. Like if Trump can go up there and say that this is a hoax, right? And then let's like, how many people do you think like actually realistically believe that? Like listen to him say that it's a hoax, and then in their mind it's confirmed. Like, oh, whatever he says is real.
I mean, I don't know if there's many people who will just take what he says as truth, but if it confirms what they already believe, then they'll believe it. You know what I'm saying?
Like misinformation and then him confirming the misinformation.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, again, we don't know who gave them that misinformation. That could have just been from the same people that are trying to confirm it. Like, that's what I'm trying to get at. I think it's like a bigger thing where they just want control over people's minds. They want it, not mind control, but as in like they want to control the narratives that you believe in. I think that's what it is because people can benefit from that. Like so many people benefit from controlling the narrative.
Yeah,
of
but I mean,
things.
it all comes down to money, right? That's where the benefit is.
I think money becomes useless to people at a certain point. I think they just want power over people. They want that influence, and they want to be able to tap into people's minds without having to like, do other crazy shit.
Yeah, but you're able to do that with more money, right? Like the more money you have,
True
the more
too.
power
Yeah.
you have.
Right. That too. Again, see, everything goes hand in hand. Like I don't know an answer to this. Like I'm just sort of, yeah, everything definitely goes hand in hand though. You're right. It's money, power, influence. There's powerful people out there way smarter than the average citizen who, controls the narrative via media. Like there's a lot of shit happening. And I have you actually, this is kind of an interesting thing. Have you heard of the Russian bots that have been kind of attacking Reddit and
Yeah.
all these other sites?
Yes.
Dude, I do not believe that Trump has as many supporters that he has. I don't even believe that there's that many people in this country who care about MAGA that much. Because personally, to me, I think all these people are either staged or they're Russian bots on the internet. Because I like it. It just doesn't seem realistic. Like half the people that support him are getting hurt by his things. Again, not to say Trump is good or bad, but to have like such a crazy fan base online that constantly like is like propaganda for your bullshit. I think those are all just bots. I think the anti-vaccine moms, for the most part, I think those are just bots too. It's like people are trying to create these accounts to say inflammatory things in order to either further a narrative or push like this image that this is a bigger issue than it actually is.
Yeah. So, like, what do you say then about the fact that he's president and that there are millions of people that voted for him?
That's another thing. I don't know what's real or not anymore. I think if Trump managed to accomplish one thing in this presidency, he's managed to convince, if not all of America, but most of the world, that news is fake. And like he coined that term fake news, but it goes deeper because he himself is the fake news calling fake news. Like it's crazy, but it's like there's no proof for anything that he says and anything that he does, but there's also not proof confirming anything that is happening either. Like there's no proof, like there's no solid evidence on anything. Like I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like I don't know if there's actually millions of people that voted for him. Like I don't know if they're even around. Like I don't know. Like I just don't
Yeah,
know.
I think coming from where you live, like you live in a blue state,
Yeah.
the area you live in is very liberal. I live in Utah,
Mm-hmm.
which is very religious, very
Mm-hmm.
conservative. I grew up in
Mm-hmm.
Kansas, which is very conservative. And I see these people. I see the kinds of people that voted for Trump. I run into people who still defend Trump to this day
They're
after
real.
like
These are like
the 2 years of his administration that has just been a joke, basically. There's still people who think he's way better than if Hillary had gotten elected. And I'm not saying that Hillary's great. Like, if you look at the election, I think Hillary and Trump are like two shitty people who shouldn't have ever been there in the first place.
yeah.
It's more about like making sure the other side loses now than doing good for everybody. It's like it just seems that people are more caught up in saying, "Oh, you know what? I don't care if I hurt myself as long as I make you hurt more than I do."
Dude, but I think that's been a thing. Like that's been in not only in this country but in humanity ever since it, started because I mean, this idea of tribalism is, it's been around. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, but I think the tribalism in this country is different because I think this tribalism isn't only solely due to Trump or MAGA or politics. Like, I don't give a fuck about Trump or Hillary or Democrats or whatever the fuck you claim that you are. You could be a conservative, a alt-right, a liberal, whatever the fuck you seem to label yourself. I don't care. Like, I don't look at politics like that. I see politics as a game. And I think it's a game where there's these two teams and they're constantly fighting, but it used to not be like this, right? But I think there's another player in this game that we don't know about. But I think whoever that player is, could be Putin, could be someone else who has these connections. I think there's something bigger at play than just a team game. You kind of see what I'm saying? Like I think a lot of the team games that are being played right now, left versus right, if you go to those comment sections or you even go to their their subreddits or wherever they claim home, you'll find a lot of the comments are not realistic. Like, it's just, you can tell when there's bots. Like, you can tell when there's clearly people creating these fake accounts to push a narrative. And that's what I said earlier about power. Like, you control power when you control the narrative.
What you're saying, I think there's some truth to it, because I feel like the major goal is just to divide our country as much as possible, and it's like,
Yeah.
whoever's running that is doing a pretty good job, because I don't think it's 100% like genuine. I think the media plays a big part in this. I think the media is awful. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's a joke, honestly, the way that they are able to convince one base how correct they are and convince them that the other base is completely wrong. And it's just like,
Yeah.
you look at people, and when you actually relate to somebody else, you can see how similar we all actually are, but we never focus on the similarities. We always focus on the differences. And as a result, like, our country is getting like further and further away from each other. And I mean, we're in a different time than we've ever been in, and other countries don't see these issues, but not every country is America. Not every country
Right.
has such a diverse population. Like, you go over to Europe, and for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
everybody in Germany is German. Everybody in France is French. You come to America, and yeah, we're all American, but we all have different backgrounds. We all have different values. Whereas
Right.
you go to Japan, and their population is much more homogenous.
Right. Right.
So I think that's a factor as well.
I think what it means to be an American is a lot different than 2000 till now in 2019, because like the value of an American has changed. I don't know if you felt that way, but
In 2000, I was too young to pay any attention, so I don't know.
maybe, well, if you look back now, I guess, like at how it was, but I don't know if I look back at like 2000 America, like, okay, look, so for me, I'm a brown American. Obviously, if you don't know that by now, what's going on? But I'm a brown American. So the thing is, when 9/11 happened,
Mhm.
that's when that's when the meaning of being an American changed. Because before 9/11, I was getting along with everybody fine. Life is great. Everything is great. Everyone got along. You're brown, black. Who gives a shit? You know what I mean? Come sit with us. Come eat food with us. Let's have a good time. Let's joke around. And life was amazing. It was like this utopia almost, where anyone can get along. It was kind of like what we were describing about, like, everyone caring about the environment, everyone caring about all these issues. There might have been some shitty politics going on because Bush was president at the time. I don't know what the fuck was happening, but if you do look back at what it means to be an American, though, everything changed once 9/11 happened, especially if you're a brown American, because I remember sitting in my classroom watching 9/11 happen on the TV, and every day past that day, I've been looked at differently by everybody. Like, it's just, if you're brown, people just look at you differently. It's changed now, where people are more sensitive towards issues, and they don't, we're not in like a racist time anymore. Actually, let me not say that. We kind of are, but it's not so overt. No, let me not say that either. Okay, it's basically, look. It feels like being an American changed because it used to be about unity. It used to be that we're all American. It used to be that we're all in America. So, like you said, no matter where we come from, this is home.
Mhm.
We are that. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. This is home. Welcome to America. You smile at your neighbor. There's a lot of etiquette that comes with being an American, but that's all gone now. Like, I don't think being an American is the same thing, because I think now it's like pick a side. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, what are you outraged by? That's the new American. The new American is, what are you outraged by? Pick a topic, become outraged by that. What side are you on? You know, what
Mhm.
team are you on? Who? And I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like where we're at now. I think it's just really, we're just in a really fucked up like civil discourse time where everyone's just like all in their own corners. You know?
Yeah. It's pretty ugly right now. It's not. It's definitely not the highlight of America's life. You know.
I mean, what are you gonna do? I guess like as long as humans have this innate ability to pick a tribe and to stick with the tribe, this is always gonna happen no matter what.
I think a lot of it, and I apologize to our older audience, which I don't think we have, but a lot of the problem, in my opinion, and this is just a millennial opinion, is the baby boomers. Okay, baby boomers, you gotta care about somebody other than yourself, you know. And I think
Yeah.
that's like one of the major issues is the older generation, for whatever reason, uh, is so entitled. And I know they look at us and they say that we're entitled. But you look at the way that our
Mm-hmm.
generation treats each other, and we treat each other so much better than
Oh
the
yeah.
older generation treats anybody. I'm not saying all of these people are just shitty people. I don't want to say that at all. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, obviously, there's a lot of good people, but I think their mindset is so different than the mindset of millennials and what's the generation below us? Generation Z
Mm-hmm.
and Gen X. I think Gen X and millennials and Gen Z, we've all been fucked over by the boomers. So like
Mm-hmm.
we're more united as younger people than the older generation, in my opinion. And I think you can see that in the country. Like when you go to schools, I feel like bullying isn't at all what it used to be like. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like anymore people don't care about your race or your religion or your sexual orientation. I feel like kids just don't care about that.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but I feel like a lot of it will change in like the next 20 to 30 years as
Yeah.
like the power shifts, I guess.
I mean, yeah, no, you're right about that. Like, I have family friends who has, okay, so there's one family friend, right? Just one specific example. He has a daughter who's in 6th grade. So when she tells me about the stuff that she's learning in school and, you know, her life and what's going on, it kind of like it's totally different than when I was in 6th grade. Like, it's totally different. Like, they have a completely different like system of education in terms of like how they teach kids now, right?
Mhm.
And one of the things I learned was that kids are becoming way more mature at a younger age. Because this 6th grader was telling me that she left one of her friends because the friend was being too toxic. For a 6th grader to say that, like, it blows my mind, dude. At 6th grade, like, toxic was not a word that I knew. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they don't teach you these things. Like they don't teach you political correctness at a young age. When we were growing up, I don't know about you, but
Right.
like we're only 3 years apart. But like when we were growing up middle school, like I don't know if your teachers ever taught you how to be politically correct.
You have to think of where I went to school too. Like where I went to school, everybody is white. Like I don't know how many non-white students we had. I'd say less than 5
Yeah,
in the entire school. And I
Jesus.
went to a very small school. Like I had less than 20 people in my class.
Mm-hmm.
But coming from that environment, you know, everybody is very conservative. So like that sort of stuff isn't taught because everybody's the same. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think people are as aware of being tolerant and mindful when everybody's the same because everybody shares the same values for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's different. I feel like kids now, they're more mindful of others and they're more sympathetic towards other people. Whereas like the older generation, you know, there's always like the cliche of pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Mm-hmm.
Where I feel like the younger generation, that's not how they feel about people who are down on their luck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, that's actually a really good point. That kids are different now. Like they're super different now in terms of like how they view things.
Yeah. I mean, I like to
I
shit
like
on the
that.
generation below us just as much as anybody else, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I'm hopeful and I feel like everybody coming up, like people who are in high school, people who are listening to this right now, I feel like you guys, your generation is good. I don't want to like say that your generation is shitty because I truly believe that that generation is going to make the change more than anybody else.
Dude, yeah, like for real. Because I think like when So when I used to talk to like fans back in the day, I kind of hated it because they were like kind of young. They were like 13, 14. Some of them were older too, but I'm specifically talking about the younger fans because I used to get really annoyed by them. You know, I used to get really annoyed by the shit that they liked. I used to
Right.
be like, dude, how do you poggers, omega lol? Like, I'm not just saying those are two Twitch emotes, but you know, when I look at the shit that kids like, I used to shit on it. I used to be like, man, when I was a kid, I liked, you know, this is just a ripoff of the
Right.
shit that I
Right.
had when I was a kid. You know, I'm always
Yeah.
trying to like be one up. But then I realized that I'm being a baby boomer in a lot of
Right.
ways, right? I'm being the very thing I hate.
Mhm.
So to me, when I start talking to fans now, it's like my tone's completely different, you know, because I've had time to kind of like sit and mature in my own thoughts. So when I speak to these like kids now, like 14, 30, like this 14-year-old who's like a fan of mine, I was showing my videos off and I sent him a link to it. And he DM'd me like 2 years ago, and I never like literally opened the DM in 2 fucking years. But I sent him a video, and then he hits me back up. He's like, "Oh my god, you checked my DMs. Like, you had like a great channel. Love you, blah blah." So I showed him the video. He liked it. And at the end of it, you know, he was just telling me like, "I'm 14. You know, I'm only 14. I'm pretty young. Blah blah blah. You know, I'm trying to like figure out what I want to do." And like I said, dude, I told the kid, I'm like, "Listen, like, you got a long life ahead of you, and you got this. Like, I believe in you. You know, maybe other people won't tell you this shit." And then like he looks at me, he's just like, "Bro, like you're like you have such a big channel. How are you gonna say that to me? Like, you're not like these other people that don't say things like that." But to me, it's like I think we need to stop telling people that the generation below them is shit. And
Mhm.
we need to stop perpetuating this idea that every generation shits on the generation below them. That's not true either. I think there's very specific people in each generation that are fucking assholes that are willing to shit on the previous generation. But that doesn't entitle everyone to shit on it. You kind of see what I'm
Right. I
saying?
mean, it's not so much like directly talking poorly about
Yeah.
it, but it's always saying like, "Oh, you know, when I was a kid, things were so much better than they are now," or it's those
Yeah.
kind of comments. And I
It's
think
the
that's
nostalgia.
yeah, it's nostalgia talking, and it's like we were saying earlier. Instead of focusing on the bad things, focus on the things that are good and are
Yeah.
positive. And instead of like talking down to this generation, why not help them succeed so that it's like I don't know if there's this need or this desire to be part of the best generation, but it's like for me,
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck about
Yeah.
where people see millennials in 50 years. I don't care about
Mm-hmm.
that. I care about how I right now am viewed as a person, and I don't care about how the generation as a whole is viewed because I know that there's that mindset of, oh, our generation was way better. We did this, this, and this. Your generation's just, you know, you're too into technology, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah. And it's just like, we shouldn't be focusing on that stuff. We should be focusing on trying to make everybody better.
Right. I I think the first step to that is empathy.
Hmm.
And empathy is learned differently for everybody, but I think a base that anyone listening to this can apply to their life is that empathy starts when you can put yourself in the other person's shoes. That's literally where it starts, right? And then it
Hmm.
could end at any point. Empathy is a spectrum. It can end at any point. You could be the most empathetic person by understanding that line of logic, or you could just show empathy to people that you care about, not necessarily to strangers. You know, again, it's a spectrum. However empathetic you are, it is what it is. But I think everything starts with empathy. You have to be able to put yourself in their shoes. If you're somebody that's older and you look at someone that's younger than you and they're like doing the floss dance from Fortnite or Injustice, you know what I mean? All these like kids are into that shit. You can shit on that. You could easily shit on that. But if you can put yourself in that kid's shoes and go like, damn, when I was 9, I would be doing that dance too. Like I'd be on
Right.
Fortnite all day too because I want to talk to my fucking friends, and this is and the thing about Fortnite. Sorry, this isn't an ad for Fortnite, but Fortnite you can play with people on any platform, right? So like I guess my point is that you should put yourself in that kid's shoes before you shit on him for liking Fortnite or doing a dance that you think is awkward, right? Or cringe. Like all these like words, right? Like,
Hmm.
you know, like fuck all that shit. Like just understand that that's a fucking kid, bro. And you used to be a kid too. And you used to jump around and say dumbass shit and do stupid things.
Right.
Like when did we stop being able to understand that we're dealing with humans, you know, instead of just like usernames and shit? Like they're real people. Like you have to be able to empathize. But yeah, all starts though with you putting yourself in their shoes. This is how that all begins.
All starts with
Let's,
putting yourself in their shoes. And speaking of shoes, I'm gonna I'm gonna divert a little bit. I want to go back to the book a little bit because there's one topic I wanted to touch on. One of the main things in this book it was talking about is consumerism and
Hmm.
how it's unhealthy for not only like the environment but also people's mindsets because you're caught in this mindset of more is better and bigger is better, and I always want to have what other people have, or I want to have more than what other people have, right?
Hmm.
And that's one of the things about Patagonia. They ran this ad for Black Friday that was in the book. And the
Yeah.
ad is basically, and I know first off, not first off, but halfway through this podcast, I'm finally going to address this point. I want to say real quick, I understand that this book is really just a vehicle for marketing. Okay. I
Hmm.
understand that it's made to help sell more clothing. I'm not denying
Right.
that fact. I don't want people to look at me and say he's just a sheep. He's buying into this idea. But I read this book and I look at what the company's done and I respect it. You know, I respect their values and I'm okay with being lured into this marketing scheme because I feel like what they stand for is good. The product they make is good. So I'm okay with that.
Hmm. Yeah. I
Anyway,
mean, yeah.
just wanted to get that out there before somebody's like, "Oh, Grizz is such
Even
a
if you make
gullible
that
person."
clear, someone's gonna automatically still go, okay, he's trying to shill. Like they don't. It's like the anti-vax thing. You know what I mean? It's like the same shit. It's like people just they just justify their own dumbass beliefs. You know what I'm saying? Doing whatever justify
That's
mental
hey, you know
gymnastic
what?
that they have to do
Whatever you
to
got to
get
tell
past
yourself,
it.
that's fine. If I'm a
There you
Patagonia
go.
shill, it's okay.
Fuck it,
I'm
dude.
fine
We're
with
all
that.
Patagonia
Fuck
shills
it.
on this fine day. Hey,
But basically, so they ran this Black Friday ad, and on the ad it says in big print, it says, "Don't buy this jacket." Right?
yeah.
Where typically Black Friday is this day of excess where we go out and we buy stuff that we don't really need just because it's on sale.
Mm-hmm.
They're running this ad that is the complete opposite of people. Instead of saying, get this jacket, you need this jacket, they're saying, don't buy this jacket. And below it, they have all the environmental impacts of what it took to make that jacket, like how many gallons of water, like how
Mm-hmm.
much fuel was burned in transporting that jacket to the store. So they show
Yeah.
like the environmental cost basically of this jacket,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes you more aware of everything you buy. And for me, I think I've always been aware that consumerism is a thing, especially in America. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to think that I'm fairly conscious of it, but then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'll realize that I am caught in that trap where I'm sitting there thinking I need more and I really want this, but is it something that I need, you know? And
Yeah.
one of the things that he said in the book that I thought was interesting, insightful, was he said that we're obsessed with growth, but you have to realize that there's a difference between growing fatter and growing stronger. And
Okay.
this rampant consumerism is just growing fatter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know, like when you look at yourself as a consumer, do you think you're mindful or like what's your outlook on that, do you think?
I don't have okay, how do I put this? I don't have a mature outlook on that because I personally like okay, so for me, I have never worked a real job in my life,
Mhm.
right? So I've never earned like a paycheck from working under somebody. I've only ever earned a paycheck through YouTube and doing what other creative stuff I do. So like I don't ever so I don't I guess for me like when I buy something, like money has never really been uh like that for me where it's just like okay i, I want to get this because I want more of it. Like
Mhm.
it's never been that way. I think for me it's more like I work in phases. Like so maybe this month I think I racked up at least like 150 to $160 on Amazon with 1 day delivery charges for each one of those fucking items, because I wanted it, right? I needed it now. Like I wanted it
Right.
now because, creatively speaking, I need to make it while it's still hot. But not a lot of people will look at that and go, that's a smart way to purchase things. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So like, I don't know. For me, it's different. It's like this month I might spend this much on Amazon for equipment, but next month, maybe the month after that, I won't spend anything. So like I'm very much just like if I need it, I get it. Like I don't it's
Right.
not and if I need it, not only do I get it, I try to get it as quickly as I can, which is where that consumerism thing
Mhm.
is. It's like I need it now.
Yeah. Amazon has made it so easy. 2-day shipping done, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
why would I not do 2-day shipping? If I get it in 2 days instead of 6, I'm going to get it in 2 days, right?
Right, right.
But then you sit there if you actually evaluate it, the only reason you want it in 2 days is because you want it as soon as possible, but it's like you don't need it as soon as possible. You probably don't even need
Hmm.
it, period. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So, I think this book, for me anyway, it definitely opened my eyes more to consumerism, and like I said, I've always tried to
Hmm.
be a mindful consumer, but
Yeah.
I think from now on, like, I'm gonna try and make the effort to, when I buy something, make sure what I'm buying is quality and not something I'm gonna have to replace or throw out in a couple of years. Something that's made ethically. Just like be mindful of where the product I'm buying is coming from and what the company that I'm supporting actually does with the money.
Right. Right. That's important.
Because I think so many of us, and I don't want to sound like I'm talking down to anybody because I've definitely been there. I'm still there. I will just buy things because I want them. But
Hmm.
so many of us just don't think about the impact that buying that item has, whether that's an environmental impact or not, you know?
Right. See, I mean, again, that's why it's really hard for me to voice my opinions on things like environment and consumerism because I'm an active participant
Hmm.
in all of those things. Like I'm part of the reason, I guess, for why it's the way it is. And I don't really know a solution. I don't have an answer. And I hate saying that, but I think at the same time, I don't really care to seek for an answer. You know, I just personally don't care. A lot of other people do, and there's a lot of things that they try to do to fix it. And you know, you're saying earlier how they donate 10 or 1%, right,
1% of sales, yeah.
of sales, right? And there's other companies that recycle their products, and everyone's got different sort of means of helping the environment. But I don't know, man. It's like I can't really care about this kind of stuff. Like I can care about it, but I don't spend too much energy on it because everything that you're mentioning now is a symptom of a bigger disease in our community and in our society. And until we can rid ourselves of that disease, we're going to continue to see worse and worse symptoms. It's only going to get worse. So it's like it's hard to care about it when we're not even hitting like the core of it.
So you're saying the consumerism is just a symptom.
Consumerism is a symptom of everything else. Like consumerism is a symptom of capitalism, and capitalism, the fucked up shit that goes on there, is a direct symptom of our government and how lobbying works and how these how rich people get away with a lot of shit. Actually, recently, did you hear about that whole R. Kelly thing that happened?
No.
Do you know R. Kelly? I'm sure.
I know who R. Kelly is, yeah.
Like, I don't know R. Kelly that much. I wasn't around. I wasn't born. I wasn't around. I wasn't existing when he was making music or when he was at the top of
Making
his
hits.
career. Yeah, like so I went back, listened to a couple of his songs. They were kind of gross now that I know what he's done with the music and how he came up with it. But it's pretty fucked, man. Like I didn't watch the whole docuseries, but I read about it online a lot. I did, and I listened to a lot of other people's opinions who were around R. Kelly at the time. So this is like actual like insider things. And this goes into the same thing that happened with Bill Cosby, the same thing that happened with Harvey Weinstein and all these like rich dudes who are like super uber powerful because of money and whatnot. I think all of these things that are happening, like because R. Kelly apparently has a sex cult with a bunch of underage women that he brainwashes and keeps them in there, and it's crazy. This guy, he's been doing this for years. Apparently, he's been sleeping with like minors ever since he started getting hits, and everyone in his studio and everyone in his crew knew about that. Much like the Harvey Weinstein, much like Cosby, everyone around him knew that he was doing this shit. It was public knowledge in the industry, and people were making jokes about it. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a real thing. Like people were joking. Like apparently there's a video of R. Kelly peeing on a 15-year-old.
Yeah, okay, I know about that.
And it shocks me that nothing happened there because I don't know if you know how the court case ended, but this guy paid off the parents who then claimed that that wasn't their daughter in the video. That's how he got away with it. But again, it's another human being complicit with a shitty act, and that's how they get away with it, right? And it's the same thing everywhere else. These are all just symptoms of a bigger problem. We gotta hold more people accountable for their shit. And I think until that happens, we're gonna continue seeing like all these issues.
But I think you can also work on the symptoms as well. Like, yeah, there's an underlying cause, but that doesn't mean you should just ignore the symptoms and let those carry on, you know?
Right,
Like,
right.
well, if we're talking about environmental impact and consumerism, like, you can make a
Mhm.
change to that and stop that mindset today. That's not
Right.
something you have to fix the core issue, because that in itself is a core issue. If you just look at that and you say, I'm going to stop buying stuff I don't need, or I'm going to
Yeah.
think a lot harder and do more research on the items that I do buy and I do purchase to make sure that they're being made ethically and the environmental impact is lower than a similar product, even if I have to pay a little bit more money. Like, you can change that mindset now. That's not something you have to wait for the root cause to be solved. Like, if you have a cough or you're sick, you don't sit there and say, "Oh, it's this virus inside of me. I just have to wait until that goes away." You treat
Mhm.
yourself with, you go to the store, you get some Dayquil, and you're like, "I'm just gonna get rid of the symptoms."
Okay, using that same analogy, I think what's sort of happening, right? So this is what I mean, where the symptoms are caused by a bigger thing. In a way, it's like your body getting a virus, and every single organ in your body, including your brain, is trying its hardest to convince you that the narrative is that the virus isn't bad for you, that it's good for you, that you shouldn't get rid of this virus. And it's like every part of your organ and body and your mind is telling you this. It's like almost a change in narrative. And when you believe a narrative coming from somebody, then they have power over you. And this is what I was saying earlier too a lot. For example, right? Let's look at the R. Kelly thing, right?
Mhm.
If R. Kelly is bringing in underage girls into the studio to fuck them, that means that there are people around him in the studio allowing that to happen, right? He has to have a tour manager. He has to have a studio producer. He has to have a team of people because all these people are getting paid by this guy. So even if he's fucking these underage girls, there's a lot of different people around him that'll enable that to happen, right? And then so now let's look at those people. Are those people necessarily bad people? Or are those people just people that are turning a blind eye to something because they're getting paid? Their narrative of the situation is being controlled. And that's what I'm trying to get at. It's like if everything's telling you that something is right when you know it's wrong, I think that's where the problem is, you know? So it's got to stop there. Like the narrative has to be held accountable, you know? I think the narrative of all these people letting this shit happen in the R. Kelly case, I think they should all be accountable. They should all be brought forth, right? Let's
Mhm.
talk about it, bring them out. And then this goes back to what we said yesterday in the Ellie situation. If someone sends you a creepy DM, call them out. Same thing here. If these people are all complicit, call them out. Bring them out to justice, and then maybe the next big hit maker, Drake or whoever the fuck is coming up next for R&B, whatever it might be, maybe they'll learn. They'll understand. Okay, I can't operate that way. We have to change the narrative of the culture in order to even take
I
a
don't
look at
think
the
it's a
symptoms.
narrative. You keep using the term narrative like there's this narrative going on. I don't think the majority of people in the hip hop scene think that's okay. Who thinks that's
No,
okay?
but they don't think that's the thing, right? If you go to R. Kelly's videos, which I did, I went back, kind of wanted to see what the dude was about, and went back, saw a couple of videos. The newest comments, again, this is after the whole docu series came out. Again, these allegations have been going on forever, but they're just allegations. But if you go to the video, any of his videos, there's still people actively saying, fuck these victims. They're probably just lying. R. Kelly is the greatest. There's also people who are R. Kelly supporters who are also big, singers and rappers. They come out, right? And then they start going, well, I fuck with R. Kelly's music. So maybe I don't like him as a person, but I like him as an artist. Again, these might not seem like they're agreeing with the guy, but you're still giving him money. You're still giving him power. You're still giving him relevancy by not holding him accountable. Like, do you hold the artist accountable or do you hold the person behind the artist accountable for all the bullshit? That's what I'm trying to get at. I think the narrative is that everyone is okay with it. Not everyone, but I think people are willing to be okay with it. As long as the music is still there, as long as they can still feel something. It's really narcissistic and it takes away from the victims, but people actually say those things. People actually believe those things. And I'm saying like that whole situation is a narrative. It's this narrative that this is okay behavior. That if you have money and power, you can get away with anything. That's the narrative that needs to be changed. Hold these people accountable for their bullshit actions.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. I'm just not sure how you directly relate that to something like consumerism.
With consumerism, it's similar. When Reagan was president, he introduced consumerism to America. I don't know if you ever like watched his old inauguration speeches and shit, but um, during one of his speeches, he declared America as a consumerist company or country, not a company. He literally came out and said that. And consumerism was huge in this country. And the narrative behind consumerism has changed over the years. It used to be that, companies sold you basic items and appliances, right? But then now companies start selling you lifestyles. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you go to stores, they sell you a lifestyle. And this is what I mean by narrative. The narrative keeps changing. It goes from, okay, we're just going to sell you a fridge to now we're going to sell you this idea. We're going to sell you ideas like, okay, if you buy these clothing, it'll make you feel like it's summertime. If you buy this is perfect for wintertime. Like now they start controlling like what you wear, how you wear it, when you should wear it. They get these models, movies, and then like it's all a narrative. Everything is like pieces in a bigger puzzle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's one guy out there who's like controlling the puzzle. I'm not saying that at all. I don't think any human is capable of that level of intelligence. But what I do think is that there's a bunch of people who are involved in a bigger scheme that maybe we're just not aware of, that obviously they won't talk about in their bought out news stations. They're not going to talk about this shit. But I'm just saying, like, the narrative got to change. People need to change the narrative of things. And then that's when you can start looking at the symptoms.
I mean, I'm just trying to struggle. I'm struggling to see the difference between the narrative and the symptoms because to me it sounds like the same thing. You're saying the problem is that they're being sold this lifestyle and being told that they need to buy these things that they don't really need. Where it's like that seems like that's the cause as well. Like, what's the difference between the narrative and the symptoms?
Okay, so the narrative and the symptom has a difference when people can't acknowledge that a symptom is a symptom, that's when the narrative is a problem. Does that make sense? Like it's kind of like we're talking about the anti-vax thing, right? When okay, look, it's like us understanding that we don't need to buy a shit ton of things to feel happy, right?
Mm.
Right? Okay, that's one understanding. We have that. We understand that the problem is that people feel insecure if they don't have a lot of things. We understand that. But there's people who look at the way that we look at it, we might think it's right, but that guy doesn't see it as a symptom. That's what I mean is the problem with the narrative. Same thing with R. Kelly. If these people are still saying, man, fuck these victims, the music is amazing, fuck all this shit, I'm still gonna rock to it, he doesn't understand the symptom. He doesn't understand the actual problem behind it. He doesn't realize that there is a symptom. That's the narrative. If the narrative changes, he'll start seeing where the problem is. He'll start respecting the fact that there's victims. He'll start respecting the fact that this is a real issue. It's not just about music. It's not about entertainment. It's not about the artist. It's that this sick motherfucker did a lot of things to underage women, and it needs to be brought out. You know what I'm saying? So it's like when people don't see that a symptom is a symptom, that's the fault of the narrative.
I think I know what you're saying, but I'm not going to ask you to explain it again. I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah, like TLDR, like if someone can convince you that something isn't a problem when it is, that idea in your mind that they've managed to convince you, that itself is a narrative, you know?
Okay. I think
And
that
people,
makes sense.
yeah, like people stand to benefit from you not believing in their bullshit or from you believing that they're in some bullshit. You know what I mean? Like people will always try to convince you out of it. And you can see like the symptoms are everywhere, you know? I think it's a big issue with them. But again, like I don't know how you would switch the narrative of conversation from like, oh, you don't want a sports car? Oh, you don't want a big house?
I think the change that needs to happen is it has to be less about want and more about need. Because I think if you say this to people, a lot of people will agree because I mean it's a cliche where it's like money can't buy happiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it comes down to where it's like money is this necessity that you have to have money to live. But after a certain point, like there have been studies where they say, like in America, I believe the number they use is like 70,000. If you make $70,000 a year, anything you make after that is not going to change your level of happiness.
Right, right.
So basically, you just have to make sure that everybody is aware that, you know what, you can buy that sports car, but it's not going to change how happy you are. It's not going to make you happier. It might make you happier for like a few weeks,
Yeah.
but that's not going to last. Like any lasting impact is going to be something mental. It's not something that you can go out and buy. Like the reason I enjoy my life isn't because of the things I own, it's because of the people in my life, right? And you can't
Mm-hmm.
buy your friends. I mean, you can, but then
Mm-hmm.
they're not real friends. So it's
Right,
like
right.
people just have to make that change from always wanting stuff to seeing like what do I actually need? Or if I
Mm-hmm.
do want something, am I making an informed decision or is it just an impulse buy because I want it now? Like if am I still going to want it 6 months from now? You
Yeah.
know? So I think that's like the mindset people have to start looking at.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I'm not saying that like nobody looks at it that way because there are obviously a lot of people that are aware of that. But I know me personally, I'm not the best at doing that, and I think that's something I'm definitely going to try to be better about is what am I buying? Do I really need to buy this? If I don't buy it now, is it going to impact my life negatively? And if I do buy it now, is it going to make me any happier than I am now? You know, like and if you answer those questions truthfully, I think
Yeah.
you'll find out that more often than not, no, you don't need this.
Something interesting that I thought about while you were talking about happiness, right?
Mm,
Pertaining to like trying to find it, as it's not always through money, right?
right.
Like, okay, so for me, I believe that growing up in this country has programmed me in a way to look at the world in a very specific sort of like ideology, right? Like growing up, I was always democratic. I don't care about political parties now, but I was always democratic because I think growing up in a blue state, growing up around so many different kinds of people, and then seeing how like how racist the world could be and all these different things, I was pushed the narrative that Democrats is the way to go. Always be blue, fuck red, blah blah blah. It was some weird ideology that I grew up with, and
Yeah.
you can kind of see that in the modern day college kids. A lot of them are just liberals, if whatever college they grew up in. Political correctness is a big thing, but I personally believe that uh, there's programmable emotions in every human, and I think when an entire society kind of tells you and kind of pushes you to this bigger picture that you want money to be happy, that you need to have the newest iPhone, that you need to have the biggest house compared to your neighbor or your friends, you got to have the nicest car, you know what I'm saying? Like when society sells you this image via like marketing and movies and whatever the fuck, even YouTube, like the new age YouTubers flaunt their wealth like nobody's fucking business,
Right.
right? Nobody's fucking like that's all they fucking do. We used to just be rappers who talked about their wealth and showed it. Now it's just your local YouTuber with 1 million subscribers. Dude has like 10 gold chains. Like he doesn't give a fuck. Like it's just
Right.
we're at that point, right? Where it's so grossly luxurious for no fucking reason. Like it's just we're at that point. So I think for me, it's like it's being able to understand when you're genuine, when you're actually genuinely happy, and when you're programmed to think that you're happy. And I think you have to understand what that difference is. A lot of people go into the workforce and hate their fucking life 5 years in because they might be making all this money, but now they have no time for themselves. They
Mhm.
don't even know if they want to do this for the rest of their life, right? A lot of people regret their choices in college too, majors, going into different, jobs and positions. A lot of it is programmed happiness. They were programmed to think that this is what's going to make them happy. And then when they get there, they find out it's really empty and it's not really what it's cracked out to
Yeah.
be. And I think those people have the highest chances of breaking mentally and doing some stupid shit. Either they go down like a drug addiction path, or they try to hurt somebody else, or they get really obsessed about something. Like it can really break people when you program people to think that this
Right.
is what makes you one way and it doesn't.
Yeah, because like growing up, you're told, go to college, get a job. Like this is the life you're supposed
Yeah.
to have. And then when you do those things and you look at your life and you're going, you know what, I'm not happy with where I am. I'm not, this isn't what I thought it would be or what I was promised. And I think it's like you
Yeah.
said, that's what leads people to having like mental breakdowns or going into depression and things like that is that they were almost promised this idea of happiness or like this future
Hmm.
where if you do all the right things you're going to get this, and if you buy this or if you do this you'll be happier, you'll enjoy your life
Hmm.
more, and it's just not true. And I
Right.
think like when people come to that realization it's like it's kind of a it's kind of a shitty moment. I mean, it's a good thing to realize that you're not happy in the current situation you're in, because I think that makes you evaluate your life and like what you value.
Yeah.
you learn more about yourself by not being happy than you do by being happy. And I think by not being happy, it makes it easier to be happy in the future, if that makes sense.
No, yeah. That's one of the things that was in Jordan Peterson's book. We talked about it in the first podcast too. It's this idea of, what was it? The exact words, like sacrificing pleasure now for salvation in the future. And
Sure.
That's not exact
if
words.
If you want to throw out the word hey, anytime you say salvation, it's welcome on the podcast. Just,
Yeah, that was kind of I don't know why I said salvation, but you get the point, right? It's like you sacrifice something now for a benefit later. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the same ideology. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard though. It's hard though for people to do.
It's hard. I mean, you don't want to always sacrifice. I feel like you can't always make sacrifices now because then you're not living.
Yeah. No, for real. The same thing with compromising. You can't always compromise.
Can't always compromise.
Yeah, you got to stick to your shit even if you don't get what you want. You gotta stick to it and just believe. That's the thing. I think a lot of the corniest phrases are some of the realest fucking phrases ever to have been uttered. Like, believe in yourself. It's such a simple, corny fucking phrase, right? And it's been beaten to death. But it's only been beaten to death because that phrase is so beautiful and so many things can come out of that phrase.
Just like money doesn't buy happiness.
Right. It was such a beautiful statement, yet it's been fucking whored out to every corner of the industry and the markets, and people sell it on T-shirts and fucking pictures. Like, I totally get it, And the worst thing is, like, all these Instagram hoes just like put that as their fucking like tagline with the picture of their ass, like, "Oh, believe in yourself." It's like, dude, because like something beautiful like that gets commodified. That's what happens in a society like ours, right? So it's really hard for people to take things like that seriously too, because they see it so much. They're just
oversaturated.
Believe in yourself. I heard that when I was a kid. That shit didn't work for me. Like, people they have expectations. And it's also how you're raised too. Like, I don't know if your parents raised you with this entitled viewpoint, like, "Oh, if you do this, Dylan, this will happen for you because life will reward you for your hard work." It's like,
I don't think like that's necessarily a parenting thing. I think that's just kind of like society in general, is like you're just told to do these certain steps.
Yeah, no. That's
yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, my dad always hates that I'm not in class, like, trying to earn a degree and trying to like do the typical route everyone else is doing. But I don't know. It's like ever since I was a kid, I've just never been really into the idea of forced education, having to fucking sit there and program my brain into whatever the fuck.
That's a topic for another day.
With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is episode 3 of season 3.
If you're gonna go buy something, think about that purchase and say, "Do I need this?" That's all I ask.
It's crazy how like you read a Patagonia PR book, and then at the end of it, you came out anti-consumer, which I think is dope because that's like it's a consumer.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like I said, I've always tried to be aware of it, and I feel like I have been, but I think this book, it's like it just. If my eyes were already open, but I feel like they opened more.
they made you woke, like you were woke, but they like woke you up.
And it's not like this book is like a life-changing book. I don't want to make it seem like this book is the greatest thing ever. It's just like sometimes it's nice to have that reminder, and sometimes even a bad book can change the way you view something, right? So it's like
I don't know about that.
I'm just saying sometimes the way your brain works and the way you interpret things that are written or things you hear can change your outlook. It doesn't have to be like an amazing work of literature to change your mind.
Yeah, I did. No, I'm with you on that.
So I recommend the book in used paperback or ebook form. Save the environment.
Wow, dude, I like that, dude. Extra recommendations.
Yeah, so that's all I have. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Raj will be introducing us to a book next month, so I'm really excited for that.
Yeah. I hope you guys like this. This is actually a longer podcast, I think, than we've done in a while. Yeah, it's a good conversation, man. I like
good combo.
All right, everybody. All right. We're out.
Are we gonna do our sign off?
No. We need to challenge ourselves to not do the sign off until we come up with a new sign off. But for now, though, I hope everybody listening to this has a fantastic day.
You guys can do the outro at home on your own.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah. And send us. No, don't send us your outros.
We send us your outros. We'll put it at the end of the next podcast. We out of here.
Oh, that's actually a brilliant idea for. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, we're out. Peace.